Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, a place where we discuss how tech trends such as AI, machine learning, IoT, AR, VR, blockchain, crypto, and the digital transformation of everything are already reshaping our world. And today, I want to explore the world of biotech. And that phrase is flirting with buzzword status at the moment, and I suspect we will be hearing more and more about this space in the months ahead. So I've invited Paul Robson from a company called Benchling onto the podcast, who's going to join me in a conversation about the shortcomings currently present within life sciences, research and development, and how that helped inspire the creation of Benchling, but also about the role of the cloud and how it's transforming research and development in life sciences that will ultimately speed up scientific discoveries, including things like COVID-19 research, which is an obvious example. But we will explore many other examples of how a cloud R&D platform is helping to accelerate the pace of scientific breakthroughs. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you are listening in the world, I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Australia in record time so you can join me and Paul Robson in conversation. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey, how you get here, and ultimately what your origin story is?
Neil, great to be here. My journey to get here is a long and windy road, as I think most people's are. I started my career as a product manager working for a great European company called Philips Electronics, an over 100-year-old business that was based on innovation. Loved that, worked in a couple of different areas. And one of them that I landed in that grad program was a very old division that no longer exists at that company that was selling an early kind of PC and peripheral business. And many people don't know, but Philips was one of the inventors of the USB technology.
Wow.
And through that kind of position, I started working with a super fast startup out of Texas called Compact Computer Corporation. Ended up joining them, stayed in product management for a little while, and then that organization was acquired by Hewlett-Packard, moved into HP and kind of cycled through a number of different roles in marketing and channel management. And after being there for about 10 years, I thought it was probably the right time to move out of hardware and move into software. And so I joined a company that was famous for discs in boxes with Adobe to run the Australia and New Zealand business. I'm Australian, so I went across to run the Australian business for Adobe, and then had the most amazing 10 years as Adobe completely transformed its business from discs in boxes to a full, a cloud offering and a SaaS model. One of the first software vendors to kind of make that leap of faith. And that journey with Adobe took me on to running all of Asia. Then I moved to Europe, ran the European region for Adobe, and then a couple of years ago, I was running everything for Adobe outside of North America. And then after 10 years, I felt like it was time to do something different again. And I started looking around at different organizations. And the one thing I really wanted to do at this stage of my career was to find a company that had a great purpose. And I found myself working for what I think is an absolute rocket ship and a fantastic purpose-driven business, and that's Benchling.
Wow, what a great story. Listening to it there, I was getting flashbacks from my IT past and the problems with licensing and trying to find the license keys to all those discs in boxes that you were creating. Oh, it was a different time back then, wasn't it?
It was not only was it a different time, but it was a hell of a journey convincing people that they didn't need to carry their discs as they were. We had Adobe had a lot of customers that were professional photographers that were in the Amazon jungle and the depths of Africa taking photos of wildlife. And they were like, we need to have our discs in case something crashes. Well before the internet gave access to everyone everywhere.
And of course, as you said, that path led you to Benchling, and they appeared on my radar after I was reading about the mission over there to unlock the power of biotechnology and empower your customers to get the milestones and market faster. But can you just offer a bit of an overview about that mission and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Benchling's, I think it's a great company, very purpose-led. It was founded by two gentlemen, Saji and Ashu, both MIT students that had a mixed background in both computer science and biology. And Saji in particular started working as a research analyst, and he was like, this is crazy. Technology is changing the world, but here I am as a research analyst, and I'm using antiquated tools to kind of capture the data in what I do every single day. And time and urgency matter more and more now than ever before with everything that's happening in the world and the race to bring out new drugs and to solve some of humanity's biggest problems. It was all about what can he do to create a company that can make change there. And so for me personally, I was dramatically just attracted by the concept of, Benchling's really working on solving some of humanity's toughest challenges, from curing disease to solving for food scarcity and drought-resistant crops to climate change. That's what our customers are using our technology for. And biotech is going to touch us more and more in every single way. So he started this company called Benchling. Our employees are called Benchlings, which I think is pretty cool. And our mission really is to allow the scientists to go back to do what they do every day, which is create amazing breakthroughs and deliver to the promises that humanity needs.
And for anyone listening outside the industry, and just help everyone understand the scale of the problem that you guys are going after, can you tell me a little bit more about the shortcomings that are currently present within life science, especially around research and development, that initially inspired its creation in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to some of those situations that Saji found as he was working as an analyst and others find, many of your listeners may not know this, but scientists go to work every single day. They put on masks, they put on goggles, they put on gowns, really uncomfortable just gear. Yeah, and they go into a lab, which can be quite an uncomfortable situation, and they run really important experiments. And there was no way for them to digitally capture what was happening in those experiments. They would literally write down, like on pieces of paper and Post-it notes. That created terrible inefficiencies and terrible workflows and lost data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Saji, involved in that was like, he's like, I've got to, I'm experiencing this firsthand. I can see a different way of doing that. And what it was a pretty stark contrast between what was happening in the software revolution across other industries, where applications were allowing collaboration and things like organizations like Microsoft and Google's were really focusing on workflows that were driving connected workplaces. But the bench work that he was doing as a scientist was still using those rudimentary tools. So what he realized was that software effectively had failed science. And in that problem, he saw an opportunity to build software that could not only keep up with the new speed of science, but accelerate it. And that's what Benchling is really about and what we're trying to overcome. So you fast forward to today, biotech is experiencing this renaissance in new techniques. There's CRISPR, there's CAR-T, there's automation, AI and ML. There's this massive explosion in data. One of the things that I didn't realize before I started, but realize now, is that every single thing in a lab spits out data, whether it's the freezer or the scales, every experiment. There's just this massive explosion of data. And the legacy tools weren't up to that. So at present, what scientists are really pushing towards is remove the friction, remove the things that are slowing us down, allow us just to get on with the experiment. And that's what Benchling software is trying to overcome.
And listening to your very personal story a few moments ago about going from disks in boxes to the cloud and the internet, etc., and this almost feels like an extension of that, because now the role of the cloud is transforming research and development in life sciences and helping to speed up scientific discoveries, including COVID-19 research over the last few years, of course. But can you expand on that and the impacts that cloud technology is having in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think cloud's just, is transforming the entire world of technology. It's transforming the way that organizations collaborate. I mean, you think about just the last 2 years. I was living in London during COVID. You couldn't even cross London. Our office was in Shoreditch. I was living in West London. I couldn't even get into the office. So let alone get on a plane and go see your colleagues in different countries. If you think about the medical industry and the life sciences industry, a lot of the content was shared at conferences. That's where the researchers got together and shared some of their experiments and shared their findings and really collaborated as an industry. That just wasn't happening. In-person conferences and events were all cancelled. So those usual ways of collaboration just stopped. The cloud really is an enabler to digital collaboration anywhere, anytime, across multiple devices. And that really is, I think what cloud is unlocked just for the general industry. What that's unlocked for science is just, in any industry, there's a resistance to change. And so I think it's not unique to have, organizations that use our technology to say, look, the current way of doing it, we've got a workflow built around it, help us really drive that ROI of moving to a digital environment. COVID, as it was for other industries, accelerated a lot of those companies to saying, we've got to work out how to collaborate. Our scientists are working in labs all around the world. We need to be able to break that down. And cloud was a path to that.
And just to bring to life everything that we're talking about here, do you have any real-world examples of how your cloud R&D platform at Benchling is actually helping to accelerate the pace of scientific breakthroughs? Because that's where the magic happens, isn't it, in delivering that value?
Yeah, I mean, I think, biotech's really at the same inflection point that software was at in the 90s, when companies like Intel and Microsoft and others, they entered the the mainstream. Over the last few years, the core tools that are being made available to drive discoveries in the world of biotech have just become, by literally orders of magnitude, significantly cheaper. And as a result, innovation is literally exploding. A bunch of statistics from some analysts. It's estimated that over the next 10 years, 60% of the global economy will be driven by biotech R&D. And that's just not biopharma, but that's going to extend to industries like agriculture, materials, CPG, diagnostics, etc. Close to half of all diseases that we see in the world today will be treated or cured by biology. The same analysts are saying that in the next 20 years, biotech could drive somewhere between $2 and $4 trillion of direct economic impact. That's just these are massive, massive numbers. And so with all of that innovation in the pipeline, you need to expect a far more transformative world where breakthroughs such as vaccines are going to happen far faster. The COVID vaccine, as an example, was a very, very short period of time. That was driven by the technology that exists in this world. You then look at, or in that industry, you then look at just the investments that are being made. In 2021 was the second consecutive year of record-breaking venture capital investment in biotech. Huge number, $37 billion flowed into biopharma startups alone. Wow. And so I then look at, let's look at some real examples. What's actually coming out of that? Just some of our customers today and what they're doing. The Editas, which is looking to cure childhood blindness. There's companies looking at using proteins to replace livestock, to stop the overgrazing issues that we're seeing in many countries. Organizations like New Age Meats and Super Meats. There's companies that are looking at replacing the clothes and the fabrics that we wear and use every day with sustainables. A company called Bolt Threads, which is using mushrooms to create a leather-like substance that is being used by Mercedes-Benz to replace the leather in their cars. And then there's organizations like Syngenta that are genetically engineering seeds to be more drought resistant and reduce the requirement for harmful pesticides. Real-world examples that are being driven by just this massive advance in technology that is happening in the last few years.
And from the outside looking in, it really feels like biotech is becoming one of the world's fastest growing industries. Is this what you're seeing too?
So some of those stats, I think, talk to that. I've spent 30 years in technology, Neil, and I tell you, I couldn't be more excited. We're seeing every industry being transformed in enterprise software. Enterprise software is where I've spent most of my career. With Adobe, we helped completely transform the world of the marketing department and analytics and digital analytics and customer experience. We saw that with the sales process and CRM being digitized using CRM tools from Salesforce and others. The back office was completely transformed and digitized using ERP solutions. Believe it or not, the lab's not there yet. We're seeing that happening right now. We're seeing, right at this time, a complete transformation in the way that research and development is happening inside the biggest pharmaceutical companies and small startups that is literally going to change the world. Mate, seriously, in 30 years, I've never been more excited than what I'm seeing right now.
And you also said that enterprise SaaS is a subject you're very passionate about too. You spent a lot of time in that industry and you've seen a lot of changes. I'm curious, are there any tech trends in enterprise SaaS that excite you too?
Yeah, I think the concept of an organization procuring software and procuring hardware and running a data center and building kind of in-house technology and then maybe going to market and buying bolt-ons or kind of working around that. I think one of the big trends that's exciting me right now is that when I spend a lot of time talking to CEOs and boards and CIOs, is that this conversation that we quite often end up at is, what's the core business of what you're in? Are you a bank or are you a software vendor? Are you a agriculture company or are you a software creator? And more organizations are now saying, I really just want to be able to deliver on the core part of my business and not worry about having to build and create my own software and my own technology to support that. And that's one of the big trends around enterprise SaaS we're seeing. I think we're also seeing, in particular in the European region, a much greater comfort level with cloud offerings and cloud computing. I think everyone understands the benefit of the compute power that's available and the ability to scale up and scale down as required. But obviously GDPR was a huge concern for quite some time around how that was going to interact around, the security requirements and data requirements. Data residency for many, many years, especially in Europe, was a big call out. And a lot of organizations at the CIO level were saying, yeah, look, we're okay with cloud, but only if that cloud data center is in my country or in my region. We're seeing that fall away. So I think what we're seeing really is a globalization of that compute power. It's truly becoming a utility. And with that, it's unlocking the opportunity for vendors such as us, such as Benchling, to really bring out great technology and provide it equally around the world to a different customer base.
And if we look at throughout both our lives, we've always seen hints that one day we might be able to cure things like cancer and Parkinson's, etc. But it always feels just a few steps too far out of the way. So what excites you about the future and how technology will continue transforming R&D and life sciences and hopefully speed up scientific discoveries and cure diseases within our lifetime?
I mean, I think that, I think just the pace of innovation is amazing. The amount of organizations and customers that I've met with and what they're doing just, never ceases to amaze me. One of the statistics that just jumps out more than anything to me is that 90% of the scientists that have ever existed are alive and working today. That's how much is going into the scientific community and how much work is happening. We have now over 1,000 biotechnology companies. Just the growth in our business has been extraordinary. We have over 200,000 academics using our cloud. Earlier this year, we were in Zurich, Boston, and San Francisco, meeting with our customers face to face for the first time since COVID. And just the passion for the product, but also their demands on us and what they're asking for us to build into the future roadmap tells me that there's a long, long, long journey ahead, which is super exciting. And we're seeing that a little bit as well, just with the caliber of people that are willing to leave mainstream technology and join what is a biotech startup at Benchling. We've, in the last year or so, we've employed some amazing executive talent from organizations such as Atlassian, Salesforce, Workday, and others. These are global leaders in their own fields, and we're seeing executives say, I can see the future and I can see the opportunity.
Love that. And looking towards the future, what's next for Benchling? Where do you go from here?
I mean, we're going to continue to innovate, expand the R&D cloud, adding more powerful tools. Our mantra that we wake up every single day is, less software, more science, and make the jobs easier for the scientists that use the product every day. It's natural to extend our capabilities from the research to development. We're exploring, expanding the solutions, then through to manufacturing. We're working with CROs and CDMAs around the world. And we're also growing internationally. Our company continues to scale. Europe's our second largest market outside of the United States. We're opening more offices and hiring more people. We're continuing to focus on looking at the Asia Pacific market as an area of focus for us. We continue to serve our customers around the globe. If you can kind of pull it back into those two key streams, continue to build out amazing technology and continue to serve our customers no matter where they are.
Love that. And we started the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. And before I let you go, as we come full circle, I want to ask you, what was the funniest or most interesting story that has happened in your career? I suspect you've got a few, but is there one that you'd like to share?
I have the funniest or most interesting story. Man, I tell you, I've had a few. I'll maybe give you an embarrassing one. We had Phil Collins, a wonderful performer, at an event once, and he was on stage, and I was lucky enough to be in the front row, and he was singing his famous song, and we were all dancing around, and he handed me the microphone, and I sang Vesuvius, not realizing the word was actually studio, because one of those words, it sounds the same, but sounds very different. And Phil snatched the microphone away, gave me a terrible look, and never spoke to me again. And all of my colleagues thought that was a very, very funny event. I've never lived that one down.
That is an amazing story and genuinely funny. I can picture that in my head.
It was extraordinarily embarrassing, and I've now not only shared that with the colleagues that were there, but now a few more people. Perhaps I should have told you a different story, but what the heck?
Before I let you go, for anyone listening just wanting to find out more information about Benchling, the work you're doing, what's the best starting point for everything?
I'm in the web. We're a digital company. Benchling.com is the place to go.
Awesome. Well, I'll add that to the show notes so people can find you nice and easy. I love chatting with you. And your story today about going from those discs in boxes, and they were even in the most remote parts of the world, to now everything being in the cloud. And the work you're doing there is incredible. And now you're accelerating the pace of scientific breakthroughs and using technology. But more than anything, just a big thank you for sharing that story with me today.
Neil, thank you. Really appreciate the time.
A big thank you to Paul for coming on the podcast today and discussing all things biotech and also exploring some of the big tech trends in enterprise SaaS that excite him. But what excites you? Simply email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com if you would like to slide into my DMs and send me an audio message on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram or TikTok. you can find me at Neil C. Hughes. I always like to finish every episode by saying technology works best when it brings people together. And the fact that you tune in every single day further proves that point. So I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.